Royal Lodge nuclear option. King Charles has to get rid of Prince Andrew. Emerge. King Charles has been urged to take radical action to get Prince Andrew out of Royal Lodge once and for all. The monarch is involved in a standoff with his brother over the property, which is situated on the Windsor Estate. The disgraced Duke of York has a 75-year lease on the mansion, which is thought to be worth £30 million. But Charles wants to see him vacate the premises and move somewhere less extravagant. Andrew has become a pariah over the past 5 years due to his friendship with paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Charles has removed the security team from Royal Lodge and has now cut Andrew's annual £1 million living allowance. But Andrew, 64, seems grimly determined to hang on and has insisted he can pay for the upkeep of Royal Lodge, despite recent images suggesting the building is in a crumbling state. Australian journalist Amanda Platell has urged Charles to take the nuclear option and serve him with an eviction notice under Section 8 of the Housing Act 1988. Hello viewers, please remember to subscribe and click on the notifications bell icon, so you will be notified whenever we upload new cookies about the British royal family. This allows landlords to evict tenants if the tenancy agreement has been broken or they want to change the use of the property. And Platell, a former press secretary to William Hague, reckons Andrew doesn't even deserve to be moved into nearby Frogmore Cottage but should instead be dumped in one of the many vacant cottages on the Balmoral estate. Writing in the Daily Mail, Platell brands Andrew a self-pitying snob, adding, Andrew's assurances that he can maintain the property, with a combination of money left to him by the Queen and his own commercial activities, don't wash any more in royal circles. Firstly, insiders say any legacy left to him by his mother has been long spent. Second, given his disgrace after consorting with Epstein and taking trips on the convicted paedophile's private jet, precious few self-respecting businessfolk seem prepared to engage with him. Now that King Charles has reportedly read him the Riot Act and cut him off, neither can he use his royal position for profit as he once did. And yet he still doesn't get it. He is said to have informed the monarch that, regardless of any ultimatum, he was going to stay put at Royal Lodge anyway. She calls on the king to up the ante, and treat his worthless brother as any property owner would an errant tenant. It comes after it emerged the late Queen was also keen to boot Andrew out of Royal Lodge, despite claims he was her favourite son. Brazen Prince Andrew's new plan revealed after King Charles axes £1 million allowance. The Duke of York has reportedly found a new way to fund life at Royal Lodge after the King has axed his security team and allowances. Prince Andrew reportedly has a new plan up his sleeve to ensure he can stay in his Windsor home, despite efforts by King Charles to try and encourage him to downsize. The Duke, 64, has been encouraged to leave Royal Lodge over the last few months and downsize to a smaller royal residence such as Frogmore Cottage. Despite efforts by the King, 75, to prompt him to leave the 30-bed mansion, including by axing Andrew's £1 million allowance and his security team, the disgraced Duke does not appear to be budging anytime soon. According to an updated version of the book Charles III, New King, New Court. The Inside Story, which is being serialized in the Daily Mail, author Robert Hardman said that Andrew has brazenly found other sources of income to fund life in Royal Lodge and the improvements that are needed to it. This includes sorting out the mold issue within the home, with part of the lease agreement being that the residence will be kept in good condition throughout. A source told the author, he claims to have found other sources of income related to his contacts in international trade, sufficient to cover all his costs, which would be a welcome outcome for all parties if that turns out to be the case. But as to whether this funding can be relied upon in the long term is another matter. Prince Andrew has lived at the £30 million home since 2004 and now shares it with his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson. He signed a 75-year lease on the property in 2003, in the hopes that it will eventually be inherited by his two daughters Princess Eugenie, 34, and Princess Beatrice, 36. According to a royal expert, It is also believed that Andrew does not want to leave the home, as then he will feel as though he has lost everything. Expert Rupert Bell told Times Radio, "One of the problems that Prince Andrew has is that he is occasionally convinced of his rightness, and he gets himself into hot water with his stubbornness, and sometimes his own arrogance has caused him to create these problems. He feels like he lost everything, and if he loses his house, well then he probably feels that even more has been taken away from him. It's an interesting dynamic between these two, but King is trying in a way to force his hand, but if Andrew says I can afford to live here, then there's not much the King can do." Prince Andrew's royal return, halted before it gets off the ground as he'd fail vetting process. Prince Andrew was linked with a shock royal return this week, as it was pointed out he could be the perfect person to act as a helicopter pilot for his brother, King Charles. The Scottish Express told how the monarch was on the lookout for an experienced flyer to join his chopper team known as the King's Helicopter Flight, TKHF. The Duke of York flew helicopters with distinction during the Falklands War and is said to retain a fascination with flying, spending hours at his Royal Lodge home tracking the takeoff and arrival of planes. Based at Odiham in Hampshire, the job carries a competitive salary with benefits handy for Andrew, who has become strapped for cash in recent years as he tries to pay for the upkeep of his home. But it has now been pointed out Andrew would likely fail the vetting procedure if he did shock everyone by handing in his CV. According to the Daily Mail, the Palace HR team states, "We will contact your professional, and sometimes personal, referees. We'll also undertake background checks in order to process your security clearance." And that would spell bad news for the disgraced Duke, whose links to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are well known. While an FBI probe into his friendship Epstein was paused, it continues to cast a pall over Andrew's head. The TKHF consists of a small team of pilots and ground support staff who provide an exceptional helicopter travel service to members of the royal family undertaking official engagements across the UK, according to the job advertisement on the royal family website. The King is looking for an experienced multi-engine helicopter commander who will act as either pilot in command or co-pilot. The successful applicant will be responsible for the planning and safe execution of flights and duties in accordance with TKHF Operations Manual. As well as flying duties, the job involves offering support to the Director of Flight Operations with a range of management and operational activities. The successful applicant would be required to live within an hour of RAF Odiham, not an issue for Andrew, whose Royal Lodge home is just 45 minutes away. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like this video and drop comments, and most importantly don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything.